One of the FBI's finest who worked on the Russian election meddling investigation turns out to be a die-hard Hillary Clinton supporter who also worked on the botched Clinton email investigation. No, we're not making this up. The political contours and misconduct in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into alleged collusion between the Donald Trump campaign and the Russian government just get weirder by the day. As the New York Times reported last weekend, Peter Strzok, whom the newspaper of record called one of the most experienced and trusted FBI counterintelligence investigators, was summarily demoted by Mueller last August. Strzok, one of the lead investigators into Hillary Clinton's mishandling of classified information on her private server, played a similar leading role in investigating the Trump campaign's supposed ties to Russian officials seeking to undermine the 2016 election. So why did Mueller let him go last August? It turns out the married Strzok, that FBI paragon, was tweeting bad things about Trump to an FBI lawyer colleague, in fact, his mistress. This, as he led a highly sensitive investigation of the man who was elected the next president. Mueller was right to let him go. But as they always say, and as General Mike Flynn has found out the hard way, it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. The House Intelligence Committee months ago subpoenaed the Justice Department and FBI for information on why Strzok, the Golden Boy investigator, would suddenly be transferred to a personnel job, a clear and humiliating lateral demotion. No information was forthcoming for 4 months, says House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, who is furious about it. He's not alone in believing Mueller and the FBI have a politicized investigation on their hands, and that the DOJ and FBI are trying to hide it. This is part of a months-long pattern by the DOJ and FBI of stonewalling and obstructing this committee's oversight work, particularly oversight of their use of the Steele dossier, Nunes said on Saturday. Nunes' committee is now drawing up contempt citations. We'll be anxious to see if those are ignored as well. Meanwhile, the Justice Department has also launched an investigation into the role played in the Hillary Clinton email investigation by Peter Strzok, Fox News reports. Strzok is key to the entire investigation. It was he who handled the interrogation of Hillary Clinton on July 2, 2016, about passing classified documents onto her private email server. Just 3 days later, then FBI Director James Comey, who now spends his days responding to Trump's tweets, exonerated Clinton after conferring with Strzok and before his investigation was even complete. After Comey was fired earlier this year and Robert Mueller was named in May to be the special counsel in investigating the supposed ties between Trump and the Russians, Strzok went to work for Mueller's team. As others have noted, the team Mueller has put together looks less like a bunch of objective legal investigators and more like a gang of political hitmen. A number are contributors to the Democratic Party and to Hillary Clinton. And now, Strzok. Many of Mueller's prosecutors, it has been extensively reported, have made campaign contributions to Clinton and other Democratic political candidates, wrote the Daily Caller's Chuck Ross. And a review by the Daily Caller shows that Mueller lawyers involved in the cases against 4 Trump associates are Democratic donors. Could Trump even possibly get a fair shake from them? Of course not. But this has only revealed what we knew, and said, all along, that this investigation had nothing to do with collusion, a crime with no strict definition, or other possible infractions such as obstruction, but rather about, first, sinking Trump's candidacy and then, when that failed, his presidency. Mueller's investigation is a semblance of law enforcement disguising the brute reality that Trump is being punished for winning the election and defying Obama policy, as Andrew McCarthy, himself a former federal prosecutor, wrote in the National Review. We couldn't agree more. We are on the record long ago calling for an end to this travesty of an investigation, which has now gone on for 1.5 years with nothing to show. Mueller should be fired, Comey reprimanded, and the investigation shut down. More and more, it looks as if this has nothing to do with justice, and everything to do with a group of rogue bureaucrats.
He's really the man at the center of so much of what we've been talking about. He knows the inner workings of the Hillary Clinton email investigation, of her exoneration. He was there side by side with James Comey at the time. He then moved right from that into the heart of the Russia probe. And we now know that members of his team were so biased against the president that they had to be removed from the special counsel's team, part of this whole thing. So what happens now? Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley says that he believes that McCabe, quote, ought to be replaced because of all this. And we also know that today they were discussing, no doubt, the cryptic text messages of the former fellow investigator Peter Strzok. Here's Congressman Jim Jordan laying into Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein last week. Watch this.
This is a text message from Mr. Strzok to Miss Page, recalling a conversation and a meeting that took place in Andrew McCabe's office, Deputy Director of the FBI, recalling a meeting earlier. And Mr. Strzok says this: I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office. Then there's a break. Dash, it says that there's no way he gets elected. No way Trump gets elected. He says, I want to believe that. You said that in the meeting in Andrew McCabe's office. I want to believe that. But then he goes, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. Now, this goes to intent.
So that's one of the big questions with regard to Peter Strzok, who, as is put in that text message, was in Andy's office, believed to be Andy McCabe, who's in there now. Jordan and other Republicans are demanding subpoenas for Strzok, for his lover, Lisa Page, also Bruce and Nellie Orr, who are married. Bruce Orr has been demoted in his role in the special counsel investigation. His wife, Nellie, worked for Fusion GPS. So as you can see, it's a pretty tangled web that has been woven here. Here now, Congressman Andy Biggs and Matt Gaetz. Both are on the House Judiciary Committee, and both have called for the resignation of Robert Mueller in this investigation. Gentlemen, welcome. Good to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
Let me start with you, Congressman Gaetz. You know, your thoughts on what likely transpired in there today. It's a classified briefing, so it's limited in terms of what we know at this point.
Well, we have to remember this is the very same Andrew McCabe who sent the emails designating the Hillary Clinton investigation as special and different than would apply to any other American. And then, as you correctly noted, the very scheme that was hatched by Peter Strzok and his mistress, Lisa Page, seems to have been hatched in Andy McCabe's presence. And so this is a very critical witness for us to be able to get to the bottom of this information. I don't want this testimony to just occur behind closed doors. One of the things Congressman Biggs and I are fighting for are subpoenas so that before the Judiciary Committee and all of the American people, we can get answers to these questions, expose the bias that we know exists, and ensure that we have a rule of law that we can rely on again in this country.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've seen a lot is calling for subpoenas and then no teeth behind it. It doesn't actually happen. Now, Chairman Goodlatte has said that he will subpoena these individuals. Can you update us on that? Is that actually going to happen this time, Congressman Biggs?
Yes, it's my understanding that they'll be subpoenaed. They'll have to come in. If they fail to come in, we can go to a federal district court and get them held in contempt. And the reality is we need them to come in. The American people need them to come in because the bias is so palpable. It's so real. And you know, when that happens, nobody believes that anybody's going to get a fair investigation in any level. So it just begins stinking from top to bottom. And that's not the way for this good agency to be. We need to get rid of the bad apples in there, and we need them to come testify how they were trying to influence, whether it's the Hillary investigation, and that goes back years, as well as the election itself.
Congressman Gaetz, what about Christopher Wray, the new head of the FBI? And the Judiciary obviously has oversight of the Justice Department and of the FBI, which is an integral part of that as well. You know, are you going to be speaking with him further about moves that you would like to see take place at the FBI so that they can remove themselves, this cloud from over their organization?
Well, absolutely. This is about more than Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. We need to ensure that we have an FBI going forward that is transparent, that is subject to sufficient oversight and redundancies to ensure that we know what's going on. We never again want to be in a situation where you get an egomaniac FBI director like James Comey who can totally depart from standard procedures in one investigation and then can create an environment where a pro-Hillary bias can exist, and then right on the back of it, the very people executing on the pro-Hillary bias end up working on the investigation, persecuting President Trump with this very anti-Trump bias that is totally indefensible. It's one of the reasons why the American people agree with us. Harvard University just released a poll showing that 54% of Americans agree that the Mueller probe is biased, and these people were acting on plans to discredit the duly elected President of the United States. That's what we have to stop.
Yeah, those polls are problematic because everyone needs to have confidence in this process because the stakes are enormously high for the President of the United States and the people that worked with him. So, Congressman